back to this episode of Just Another Year Chicago. My name is Nick Brody, and today I am joined by a very special guest, former Bears wide receiver Curtis Conway. Curtis, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, Nick. How you doing, man?
Not too bad, not too bad. I was just telling you beforehand, the Bears could definitely use a little bit of that, 95, 96 year action right now with how the wide receiving corps is playing.
Well, I'm not going to say too many negative things. We had our share of bad seasons and bad offenses when I was there, too. So hopefully they could turn it around and get on the pace we were in 95.
Yeah, I think they're already watching old footage from back then just to make sure that they're getting it right. So Curtis, before we jump into things, before I ask you some questions, I just want to give the viewers a little bit of history about you. So fans, a little bit about Curtis Conway. He played college football at the University of Southern California, where he was an All-American in 1992. And in that draft, he was drafted 7th overall by the Chicago Bears, where he played for the Chicago Bears from 1993 to 1999. He had back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons for the Bears in 1995 and 1996. And after Chicago, Curtis played for the Chargers, the Jets, and the 49ers. Curtis currently now is working with NFL Network, and he is a co-host on Path to the Draft during the offseason. So, Curtis, football just can't get away from you, it seems like, huh?
No, I love it, man. It's hard for me to really watch football, sit there for 3 hours, but I say doing Path to the Draft, it's a lot of study. It's a lot of film study, and that's what I enjoy more than anything, is studying the ins and outs of the game. It's entertaining, but at the same time, at this point in my life, I like to watch the all 22s, if that makes any sense.
Absolutely. So can you talk a little bit more about Path to the Draft and, what exactly it does for the NFL Network? Because I know that you and I, before this conversation, kind of talked about your insight on Justin Fields, but exactly what is Path to the Draft for those who don't know about it?
Well, basically, you have a couple analysts, Daniel Jeremiah, Bucky Brooks, who were former scouts who really know the ins and outs of being inside of war rooms. They are our main guys. And then I come on as I would say, the football guy, the in the locker room guy who I try to come from a player's point of view, where they come in as a more of a GM scout point of view. And what we do is, we try to, we come up with mock drafts. We try to decide who we think fits the team the best. And it's a lot of work. Any of the guys that really are studying the draft, it's not your typical everyday hot topic show. You really have to put the work in, film study, and try to do your best to understand, where a team's drafting. Should they trade down? Should they trade up? I mean, it's so much go into this, man. And so I have a lot of respect for guys like Bucky Brooks and Daniel Jeremiah. Those guys put in so much work year round with it, whereas somebody like myself, I probably start studying around about now. I'll go back and watch all the top guys, probably the top 15, 20 guys, where these guys, they just about watch everybody. So it's really a show where you have to put in a lot of work, but it's fun. If you like watching film, especially college tape, you will enjoy it.
So in regards to kind of bringing it to the Bears, obviously this past year, and talking about film and scouting, this year was huge for Bears fans as we drafted potentially the future of our franchise in Justin Fields. And a lot of people were shocked that Fields fell into the Bears' lap at 11. Obviously, we had to trade up for him with the Giants, trade away next year's first-round pick and a few picks this year. But did you think that, coming from your scouting report, that the Bears had any opportunity or Fields would even fall to the 11th pick?
No, not at all. I actually thought that was going to be a Mac Jones spot. I thought Mac Jones would have been the guy that they fell in their lap. All these quarterbacks was really good. They all were special. They all had, different things that I say, a little better than the other. So I thought that the Bears, if they drafted a quarterback, if it was one of those top guys, they were going to get a good one.
Absolutely. And one thing that, a lot of people don't understand is that feeling of draft night, actually sitting there and having your name called by an NFL team, that, I made it moment, this is what I've worked for so long. And, back when the Bears drafted you at the 7th overall pick, can you kind of describe that feeling of like everything that went through your head, if you can put it into words, exactly what it was like to be drafted into the NFL?
Well, number one, it's definitely a dream come true. I don't know too many guys that's playing college football down, don't want their name called uh, in the first round, not to mention the draft period. So to be drafted in the first round and being the number one receiver, the first receiver taken, was definitely amazing. But it was shocking. I really didn't know the Bears were going to draft me because they really didn't talk to me much after I visit Chicago. You know, we have a lot of the top guys, we went around, we went to different teams. They bring you in, and they kind of see what kind of guy you are, go through their process. And after the process in Chicago, I never heard from the Bears. I heard a lot of other teams, but not the Bears. So when they picked me with the 7th pick, I was shocked.
Well, I think Bears fans are pretty happy that we did take you. And, obviously Chicago, the fan base is crazy. We love the Bears, and you came right after, the 85 Bears, which was, what everyone still brags about, because unfortunately there hasn't been too much to brag about besides, maybe 2006, maybe 2010. When you came to Chicago and, how the fans took you in, was it everything you expected, or are Bears fans as crazy as, players expect it to be?
Man, it was total opposite, because I went to USC. So USC was closer to my house than my high school was. So to leave the state and go to Chicago, I really didn't have expectations fan base wise because, I never really worried about the fans. I was always loved to play the game. So I never felt like, I'm going to a huge fan base or a team where their fans really love them. I never thought about it like that, but they definitely let me know my rookie year when I was labeled a bust in my rookie year, for all the right reasons. But that was tough. It was tough going through that first year. I don't think a lot of people really understood that I was a quarterback for a year and a half at USC from my freshman year and midway through my sophomore year. And then midway through my sophomore year, I started playing a little bit of receiver. And it wasn't until my junior year where I was a full-time wide receiver. And then I left school after my junior year, and you're the first receiver taken. So I don't know many receivers that's ever gotten drafted in the NFL can say that they played 1 year in college at wide receiver, and they were the first receiver taken in the draft. I don't think that's ever been done. I would like to know who was. So I was very raw coming to Chicago, and with that 7th pick, a lot of expectations come with that. When I got there, it was like I was a freshman in college trying to learn how to be a receiver in the National Football League. And I'm playing against all the best athletes in the world, and I'm really learning how to be a wide receiver all at once. So my rookie year was terrible. But, again, at the same time, I understood the passion. Now I understand the passion. At the time, I didn't, because, you don't want to get on TV or in interviews and make excuses like, man, I just started playing this. But, when you get drafted 7th pick, expectations are there. So, it was rough, but I knew I had a lot of confidence in my ability. I think that's what the Bears drafted me on, because they couldn't have drafted me on numbers and experience because I didn't have it. But I will say I was one of the best athletes in the NFL because I can do a lot of different things. And with my speed and agility, I knew that at some point I was going to develop. And I was just thankful that the fans were, they accepted me once I did start playing well. And from that point on, it was kind of like a really love relationship after that.
Would you say so Bears fans automatically jump at bust? Like, that's a very quick thing, even during good years, like Tevin Jenkins, the guard that we took out of Oklahoma State earlier this year in the 2nd round. A lot of people were like bust just because of his back injury, which isn't his fault. And right. Ryan Pace knew that he had a back injury. Everyone was like, bust, another Chris Williams or Gabe Karimi. But did that light a fire under you to be like, I'm going to prove these people wrong? Or was it just more like you brushed it off your back and kept doing what you were doing?
You know what? I never really cared what people thought. It was shocking, to be quite frank, because again, growing up in LA and playing at USC, I never got booed. I was never called a bust. Even in my freshman year, I played some return. I had a couple kickoff returns, even though I didn't play quarterback because Coach Todd Marinovich was there, and he was amazing. So I wasn't going to start over him. So I never experienced, a bunch of people lashing at me because I was always pretty successful. So, it was shocking, but at the same time, I grew up in South Central LA, man. So, people don't bother me. If anything, it was shocking to see that, did these fans really understand my experience as a wide receiver? But, at the same time, you just understand that, look, I'm a football player at the end of the day. You want to be the best. So it wasn't so much a chip on my shoulder. No matter what time or how much experience I had, I was going to always work hard to try to be the best receiver I can be. So that was going to happen no matter what. So I wouldn't say the fans or anybody, was part of the reason why, because I'm a hard worker and I always want to be the best I can.
So I guess you didn't get that stereotypical Midwest welcome, super nice. It was more like, hey, what are these people doing? I thought they were supposed to be nice up here, but hey, it's Chicago football and people are just frustrated. You can imagine what guys are going through nowadays, especially with social media and everything with the Bears now, especially the last couple seasons of going 500, sneaking into the playoffs, quarterback controversy, just overall a complete mess here. But the Bears somehow still have a very loyal fan base, and it always just kind of sticks through. And so kind of talking about the Bears as a whole, we kind of hit on it earlier. You played 7 total seasons with the Bears, and your best seasons stat-wise were 95 and 96, where in 95 you had 62 receptions for 1,037 yards and 12 touchdowns. And then 96, you had 81 receptions for a little bit more, 1,049 yards and 7 touchdowns. So back in 95, would you say that was kind of the kickstart to things? You were kind of starting to gel. Was there a relationship with your quarterback at the time? Erik Kramer, just kind of what was going on that made 95 kind of get things going for you in Chicago?
Well, I think it started like really in 94 when we picked up Jeff Graham. Jeff Graham was a huge part of my development, and I have to give him a lot of credit in the way I developed as a wide receiver because, he played the game, and so I had to respect everything he said to me. Whereas when I first got there, guys like Tom Waddle and Wendell Davis, those guys were a little older. I was a little more immature. They were married, so we didn't really hang out as much. But when Jeff came, we were all, we're kind of closer in age, and Jeff kind of took me under his wing. And, I accepted his criticism. I watched him as a pro. And, he just helped me out from film study, how to use my speed, because, I've never had no one tell me that I'm not using my speed, right? I always felt like I was working hard, but he was, he kind of channeled it where, he said I didn't have to run full speed every play. Do this on this, do this on that. So mentally, you got to remember, I'm very raw as a wide receiver. So, I took a lot of things from Jeff, and with my ability, used it, and I felt myself getting more confidence in '94, and as the season went on, and so now I had a full off season with the things that I learned from Jeff to get ready for the '95 season. And so when I came in, my confidence was high. Training camp was amazing. Like I couldn't be stopped in training camp. And, I can go back to the first game we played in '95. I scored 2 touchdowns. And so from that point on, my confidence was on a whole nother level. And it was on that level because I knew how to play the position. Whereas my first 2 years, I was really just relying on my physical gifts and not really my mind and everything else that came with the game. So a lot of credit goes to really Jeff Graham for helping develop me to be the receiver I became eventually.
And so Jeff Graham, obviously a great mentor. And that's what they say a lot. Like you bring in these big name receivers or you bring in big name mentors that can help develop the younger guys. And you could say that about Allen Robinson helping out Darnell Mooney. You can say that about Jimmy Graham helping Cole Kmet. But this is something that the Bears aren't used to, is a good quarterback. And in '95 was the season that Erik Kramer almost surpassed 4,000 yards, had a lot of success, and you were arguably his favorite target. So would you say that the relationship with your quarterback also has a big impact on, because the Bears have had inconsistency at quarterback since the '95 season. And you could say Jay Cutler was one of the more consistent quarterbacks for the Bears. Now you have Justin Fields and you had Mitch Trubisky for a few years. But how important is that quarterback to wide receiver relationship really impact the game?
No, it's the most important thing for a wide receiver. And, I don't think a lot of people even know this. Like I said, I played quarterback at USC for a year and a half. And since I moved from quarterback until the day I retired, I never had the same quarterback each year. The following year, I've never played with the same quarterback back to back. So, even in Chicago, I had Harbaugh, then Walsh, then Kramer, and Dave Craig in my fourth year. And then from that, the list just goes on. Guys are in and out the lineup. So it's really hard to get a rhythm because I was a speed guy. And you have to adjust your route, especially man-to-man routes, because some guys can't get the ball out to you. So you have to kind of figure out a way to be on the same page. And when you don't have that kind of chemistry, especially with young quarterbacks, I say this a lot, young quarterbacks are used to, in college, they're used to guys getting wide open, whereas in the NFL, if a guy has a half a step on the guy, he's wide open because it's rare that you're going to beat a guy. And that trust factor, because a quarterback drops back. If he sees you defended or a corner right there on you, he has to have the confidence in you that he can throw the ball and you're going to make a play. So there's a lot of mental, not physical, because obviously guys can play. Guys are not physically not talented because they wouldn't be in the NFL. The chemistry is huge. The coaching is huge. The system. There's a lot of things that people don't know that really go into preparation and confidence and just having security in players that go into Sunday. And if you look at my career, I've had my most success with veteran quarterbacks. Guys that the younger quarterbacks, they tend to, you can't open the playbook up. And this is just facts, and Justin Fields, guys like that, I said it on NFL Network when they drafted him. That was one of my main things. Don't rush this guy. Tom Brady and these guys are showing that these quarterbacks can play till 40 years old now. So, let him learn how to be a professional, learn behind Andy and Nick, how to be a professional, kind of the Aaron Rodgers route. And once he's ready, because I said, don't put him in because a quarterback is playing bad. Put him in when he's ready. What I mean by that is a lot of people don't understand this is when you put a young quarterback in, and I don't know what the Bears situation is. I don't know how much Justin knows, but I know from my experience, young quarterbacks don't know as much as veteran quarterbacks, whether they physically are better or not. So guess what that does for your play calling? The playbook shrinks. Right. Offensive coordinators just can't open up the playbook because these guys are not ready, and they're not going to get on TV and post-games interview and say, these young guys just don't understand the offense, so we're very limited. And, we're throwing him out there because for whatever reason, and nowadays they thought, well, we drafted him high, we got to play him. Like, you can't tell me that right now Justin Fields understands the game more than Nick Foles or Andy Dalton. And that's really quarterbacking at the end of the day. Tom Brady has proven that to everybody. It's not really your physical gifts, it's your mental. And the more and more you're on the field, the more and more you're able, when the offensive coordinator calls a play, because coordinators call plays based on tendencies. Good quarterback look and say, you know what, we worked on this, he called this, but I see this. Most veteran quarterbacks have the confidence and don't care if they mess up to check off and put you in a different play, whereas young quarterbacks are probably going to stay with the coach call because he doesn't want the coach saying, why didn't you run what I call? And I'm speaking from experience. So I've always said that if a guy's not ready, don't play him, especially at quarterback. I really love that they picked Justin Fields, but my thing is don't ruin the kid, don't ruin the organization, because here's another thing too. As players, we know who's ready and who's not. We know who gives us the best chance and who doesn't. But we won't go on tape and say, you know what, we're in practice. He looks good. Everybody looks good in practice. But then when we get in the game, we really know, okay, dang, man, we got this play in the playbook. Why aren't we running this? Well, quarterback may not be ready for that. And so you kind of get frustrated as a player. So that's why I said that you just play guys when they're ready, because really at the end of the day, business-wise, yeah, we drafted him in the first round. We got to throw him out there. But to me, it was never fair for an offensive coordinator, a head coach, or the players, because everybody in the building really understands who's ready and who's not. And so they hope to throw him out there. Hopefully he does good and he run from there. And if he's not good, you kind of got to do what Baltimore did with Lamar Jackson. Tailor your offense to his game until he becomes ready. So, at the end of the day, it's a lot of moving parts that go in with offense. Unfortunately, a lot of fans and media don't really understand, and you really can't unless you're in these rooms week in and week out to understand really who's hurt, who's not, who can understand this, who's not. A lot of things go into Sunday, bro. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm happy you hit on that because that's a huge topic right now is Andy Dalton came out on Thanksgiving and threw for over 300 yards, had a pretty good game, and but he had the number one sin of any quarterback throwing a red zone interception. And to his defense, Detroit has a better defensive secondary in regards to stat wise. They were ranked 13th entering that game. And I've always been in agreement with you is that let Fields sit, let him develop. Don't let him gain bad habits. And I'm happy you said that because Matt Nagy and Bill Lazor have admitted that they give Fields a smaller scheme than they give to Andy Dalton, strictly because he's a rookie. He doesn't understand the speed of the game. And I think that's something that a lot of fans miss out on is that they don't understand that, he could be the most athletic guy in the world. Fields is a true athlete and he's going to do great things in the NFL, but great things come in time. And the Bears have him. He's not going anywhere. He's got a 4-year contract for $17 million. And by year 3 or 4, he's going to be out there. But if you have a team now that is talented, that has a young growing core, Roquan Smith, Jalen Johnson, Darnell Mooney, David Montgomery, just to name a few, let Andy Dalton lead you to success, and Fields will still get that playoff experience sitting on the bench, though, which is still okay. You still get that game planning. What does it mean? And then you also have your young core that's already out there learning about the playoffs. So I'm really happy you hit on that. And that kind of leads into, my next question for you, Curtis, is overall, a lot of controversy around also Ryan Pace. Is he a good general manager in the NFL? And he walked into a complete mess with the Chicago Bears back in 2015, 2016. Cap was all messed up, aging veterans, and he's really built this team from the ground up. The only person that isn't that's currently on the roster is our punter, Pat O'Donnell, which you really don't go out and get a new punter all that often anyway. So would you say that Ryan Pace is the guy for the Chicago Bears? Does he have good draft skills, or should the Bears just clean house and get a new GM after this year?
I think it's real easy to point the blame game and get people out of there when you're losing. Nobody's patient anymore. And based on what he's done, trust me, people thought the Raiders was crazy for giving up Khalil Mack.
Yeah.
So, come on, how did you get Khalil Mack? Just things like that, people tend to forget, when you're not having success and things are not going right, it's easy to start pointing the finger. I would say no. I don't think you get rid of them. Bears needed a quarterback. They got their quarterback of the future. You can build around him. What fans need to understand is you got to build. This thing doesn't happen. No, Tom Brady didn't become great overnight. He sat, then he played, and then he took off. The defense kind of carried the Patriots for a while until he could call up the speed. Look at Russell Wilson. I think Russell in his first 3 years was averaging over 30 pass attempts and under 200 and some yards a game. He was being carried by that defense and Marshawn Lynch until he developed into the Russell Wilson that he is now. So again, we just living in a microwave stage of everything. Everybody wants instant gratification, but I tell you what, let Justin Fields sit for 3 years. And I know he probably doesn't want to because we're competitors, we want to play. But just say if he sat for 3 years, and then for the next 17 years, you're in the playoffs and have a shot to win a Super Bowl. We're talking Aaron Rodgers. This is what we're talking about with Aaron Rodgers. So you do have your Mahomes and, Matt Jones is playing really well right now. But, let's not forget, Josh McDaniels obviously is a heck of an offensive coordinator and quarterback coach, but because of what he's done over there with Tom. So, I just think you got to let the kids sit because the more going into a football game, the more options a coach has on game day to call plays. The worst thing in the world was when it's 3rd and 7 and you got 2 plays that the quarterback is really good at. Because what normally happens is even if a quarterback knows the plays, is he good at running those in practice? And if he's not running those plays good in practice, they're going to throw him out. And, it's already hard enough to give him the whole playbook, not to mention, is he running these plays good enough in practice to be able to call him in a game situation? And the only people know that is the offensive coordinator, the head coach, and the guys that are on offense. And those are the guys who are not going to go public and say, you know what, this guy just doesn't, he's not there yet, which could be, in my opinion, based on my history, outside looking in, I think that has to be the fact, because you can't tell me right now Justin Fields knows the playbook better than Dalton or Foles. So at the end of the day, you got to have a lot of arsenal going to an NFL game, because these defenses are really good. They're smart. And if you're only doing a certain amount of things, it's only a matter of time for the guys in the booth to pick up on that and start to shut you down.
So from what it sounds like, you're giving Pace another shot at GM.
Yeah, I don't really see what's the big deal on getting him out of there. Like, if the Bears if the main thing was getting the quarterback right now, he's on the roster.
Yeah,
just because he's not just because he's not playing well right now, doesn't mean, or he's not ready, doesn't mean that he didn't do a good job. And let's not forget that, there's a lot of things going on with the draft. Me being a draft analyst, they have a board, and a certain guy they may want get picked. Now everything changes, and it could be different from picking a position to a different player at that position. We might have had that our third guy at corner is gone. Now we're not going to pick that fourth guy. We're going to go in a different direction, or we're going to trade. And these are all things are happening no matter who they look after. These things are happening on that one day. And when you go and you draft your needs, that's what, to me, a GM does. He drafts the best guy for what he needs at that point. Now, once he's on that team, who knows what kind of player he's going to be. But, right now, a lot of the quarterbacks are not playing well. I mean, Trevor Lawrence was the best thing since sliced bread. Was that a bad pick? A lot of people, where's the Trevor Lawrence that we saw? Well, give him some time. It is a good pick. You look at what he did. So, I don't really jump the gun. I understand a lot that a lot of people don't. So, and I don't even get mad at the people that don't. It's just clearly they don't really understand what goes on. All they see is the product on the field. They want wins right away, arguably so, because especially in Chicago, man, to me, the most loyal fans in football, they want to win. And I can understand both sides, but I wouldn't get rid of him. Like I said, I think he has some chips there that he's put together, and things won't always happen the way you want them to happen, no matter what kind of talent you bring in. So, look at the Jets. Every year they got the top picks, and every year they're still at the bottom. So you just never know what's going to happen with the draft picks once you get them.
I was a Zach Wilson guy just because of the fact that it was BYU. He had a swagger to him. The Bears had a tough defense. I was like, it's like McMahon. History repeats itself. McMahon's coming to Chicago. And when we didn't get him and how he's been playing, I was like, you know what? Justin Fields was definitely my second option. And I'm very happy that happened. So I couldn't agree with you more. So Curtis, before we close out today's episode, it's been great talking to you. Can you name your favorite game during your time with the Chicago Bears?
Whoa, man. That's a tough one, man. I don't want to say it's my favorite, but we played in Green Bay in '95, and I think I just came off a bad game, either the week before or 2 weeks before. And of course, anytime we play Green Bay and Lambeau is huge. No matter, we're 0-15, and they 15-0. It's always going to be a good game. And we went there and I had a pretty good game. And the reason why for me it was a big game, because I think for the first time, I was able to really put a bad game behind me and just focus on the next game. And I played really well. And again, that was just another growing moment in my career where I knew how to put things behind me and move forward versus, okay, you know what, keep, thinking about the week prior, especially if you didn't play well. The game is over. You move forward, and went to Green Bay. Green Bay was a big game, and we played really well. So I don't know if we won the game, but I know it was a good game for me.
We hope you won the game, because man, it's been a tough last 15 years with the Bears-Packers rivalry, at least since 2010. Because Lovie Smith was 7-3 entering 2010 against the Packers. And it's kind of flipped since then. So yes. I hope it was a win, but like you said, anytime the Bears play Green Bay, which we do in 2 weeks, it's always a good game. So very excited about that. But Curtis, thank you very much for taking time out of your day to join us on Just Another Year Chicago. Hope you had a good time, and we'll have to do this again sometime soon.
Appreciate it, Nick. Thanks for having me, man. Had a ball.
Yeah, absolutely. And with that, thank you very much for joining this episode of Just Another Year Chicago. My name is Nick Rohde, joined alongside Curtis Conway, and we will see you guys later.